Dial H number 12, written by China Mieville, art by Alberto Ponticelli. So last issue, the Fixer got called in as Nelson ended up using the Flash's powers for a little bit. And when they ran out, the Fixer is able to full on warp space and time, and he's dead set on finding the dial. So this issue picks up with Centipede basically gloating you lose, we win, haha, you don't have a chance. And Nelson just hits him across the face and tries to run away with the dial. Fixer turns into, he's able to rapidly change forms via his own dial. And as he's going for the dial, Centipede gets there first and just well, now hold on, before the dial, what about these two? Aren't you going to deal with them? And Fixer's dial first, everything else second. But while they're distracted, Roxy manages to run up, grabs the dial, starts running, and she's I'm sorry for whoever's powers I'm about to take, but we need to dial. Before she's able to, though, Centipede gets his hand on it. He turns around to give it to Fixer, and Fixer just backhands him, saying nobody touches my dial but me. Nobody, even if he was trying to help. So at that point, he takes out this bone-like object and jams it into the dial, and there's a clicking noise, and it says that he turned it off. I don't know if that's a permanent thing or what, but he seemingly has disabled the dial. So he's about to attack Nelson, but then Roxy steps up and says hey, Fixer, you want the dials, right? I have the S dial here. You just took the H dial, and I'm going to use it in order to stop you. So she transforms into a sidekick named Clinch, but as all sidekicks, she needs some direction. And immediately, Fixer starts telling her, hey, bring that to me. But Nelson reminds her, hey, you're not Clinch, you're Monteau. Remember that. You can ignore his orders. And so she puts on the Monteau outfit and she starts fighting back against Fixer as best she can. But she still needs orders, so Nelson manages to get his hands on the H dial again after Fixer dropped it and says all right, you need an order, get us out of here. So Centipede tries to get in the way. Clinch busts through all of them, carrying Nelson at super speeds through a hotel building, it seems, or an office building. And as they get up into an office, she reverse dials and turns back into Roxy. And it's at this point where they're just kind of waiting it out, seeing if they manage to escape. And Roxy brings up hey, we need to talk about how we woke up last issue in bed together, that sort of thing. And she's we can talk as adults. It's not this embarrassing thing. And he's no, it was humiliating to me to wake up like that. You didn't humiliate me, but I felt humiliated. And she's oh, okay, you got your own issues here. But at that point, they're listening at the door. They hear some movement, and Fixer and Centipede just bust right through. So Nelson, they're up on a high up level on this office building. He opens up a window trying to get out, realizes there's no way out. And as soon as he opens the window, I lose the plot. Because busting in through the window is Open Window Man, who was a friend of Boy Chimney way back in the beginning issues. And everyone's who the hell is this guy? Except for Nelson's I remember you. You're friend of Boy Chimney. And so he uses his defenestration punch to push Fixer and Centipede out the window. Centipede hits the ground, but I don't think it matters because of his powers. Fixer just turns into a bunch of balloons. And Open Window Man is able to use his powers to go through open windows different portals. So he goes out through the open window, carrying Roxy and Nelson along with him, and they end back up at a different open window somewhere else. But Fixer and Centipede are not too far back. They've shown up. They're ready to fight some more. And as they're ready to fight, a tear in space-time, just like the Fixer uses, opens up and outsteps a huge group of dialers. They all have dials on them, and Open Window Man even calls them the Dial Bunch. So we see a couple of them fight back against Fixer and Centipede. They kick Centipede through the tear in space-time, which ends up going back to the lab that he came from, where they brought the Fixer out from to begin with. So Nelson gets him in there and makes sure that he's held in there for a while. The other dialers use their dials to stun Fixer and then tackle him through. And then they both tackle Fixer and Centipede through the portal that Fixer came through to send him back into his own realm. And then they shut the door behind him. So at that point, we get introduced to the entire crew. They've got crazy ass names here. Unbled, Yaba, Ijad, and Dwan. Dwan stands for dialer without a name. So, and he's like stuck on auto dial apparently, where he changes like every few seconds. So they're kind of just all figuring out what's going on there. Oh, and one of them is named Bansa. And it turns out that Open Window Man is not a dialer. He's just a hero. Sure. So anyway, they're all getting acquainted, but then the scientist steps up and he's like, excuse me, guys, we just sent Centipede into Fixer's realm, correct? And they're like, yeah, now he's out of our hair. And it's like, right. But Centipede wanted to go to Fixer's realm. You guys just sent him to the exact place he wanted to be. I think that might be a problem. And that's where the issue ends. And by the way, the guy saying all that was a scientist, the same scientist who I think was helping to begin with. So, like I said, I lost the plot halfway through this. We just introduced these whole new concepts. One of them said something about dialing G for gear, because I guess there's a hero dial, there's a sidekick dial, there's got to be a gear dial as well. Sure. I like the idea that there's this group of dialers that is like also fighting against the Fixer, but like it's just hitting me with a lot all at once. And this is how I felt way back in the first arc. So I know there's the chance that it's going to get all sorted out, but like, whew, it was a lot to take in. So overall, I did enjoy the issue. It was interesting at the very least. So I'll give this one I'll give it a 7.5. I think that it's proven that I can trust it, and I'm not that worried about it being too confusing, because I think it is going to end up explaining itself before too long. That being said, I think we've only got like 4 more issues, maybe, so sooner rather than later.